welcome to the podcast about interesting, everyday people. I'm Daniel Lance.
I'm Paul Gilman, and this is Podzo 1.
Zachariah Hani Jambo is currently a student at the African Leadership University in Kigali, Rwanda. He was born in Khartoum, Sudan, although he is of South Sudanese origin, specifically of the Moru tribe. His family moved to Cairo, Egypt when he was just 3, and he grew up there under tenuous circumstances. For example, he and his family had to avoid the Egyptian authorities until his father, a professor, was able to secure registration with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. He went on from Cairo to study at the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, South Africa, and had a brief stint in Uganda before ending up in Kigali. This episode, Zach tells us about his life, his travels, adventures, and his hopes for the future. So here's Zach Hani.
Zachariah Hani Jambo, welcome to Podzo 1. Very excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, we're really excited. You were born in South Sudan, but when you were born, it wasn't South Sudan. It was just still part of Sudan, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, I was born in Khartoum, Sudan. So at that time, there was only one country, and yeah, that's what for a large part of my life, I've always known myself as a Sudanese citizen until 2011, when all that had to change, and I became a South Sudanese citizen.
So you were born. So Khartoum is actually in regular Sudan, and then but you consider yourself South Sudanese.
Yeah, I am South Sudanese because of my mom, because she was born there, so that automatically makes me South Sudanese. Yeah, but I can also claim to be Sudanese because I was born in Khartoum, Sudan.
So what were the differences between South Sudan and it's just regular Sudan, right? Culturally and with the people.
Yeah. So okay, I mean myself, I don't even know that much, but okay, I will explain to you. So basically, the main differences is that there are a lot of differences. So the northern part of the country, which is now Sudan, consider themselves as they're Arabs, they consider themselves as Arab, and there are also a bunch of other tribes, and majority of the people in the north are Muslims, and then the ones in the south is just made up of around 65 tribes actually. So yeah, during that time, Sudan was known as one of the most diverse countries in the world because they have around close to 1,000 languages, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it was two countries. I mean, it was one country, but it was very diverse with a lot of people. So that itself was a problem because the South has always seen themselves as Africans, and then the North were trying to push some of their ideologies, things like religion, which was problematic because for the people in the South, they just felt like they don't really fit into that category. And even even the geographic differences, the climate is very different. The climate in the South is different from the one in the South. So you can literally just tell that these two parts of these two regions that make up this whole country called Sudan are very different from each other. But then they're still forced to be known as the Sudan because of colonial backgrounds and the way the British were doing things. Because before 1956, when Sudan became independent, what the British did was they literally divided the South and the North. They literally just cut off the South, and they were the way they were ruling it. They were ruling as it was part of Uganda. So just looking at that, you can just tell that it was already being prepared to be a different country. But after the independence, that changed because the Sudanese wanted to unify the country.
Yeah, and it's interesting, trying to nationalize a country when there's so, like you said, thousands of different languages, thousands of different tribes. The fabric of the people just doesn't really match nationalism. But it's awesome that it happened. So you had to leave Sudan at a very young age. Can you tell us a little about that, how that happened and why?
Yeah, so I was around 3 years old, and my sister was around, 4.5 years old. Yeah, so at that time, like my mom has had already left South Sudan a long time ago, and yeah, she just ended up living in Sudan for a couple of years. And then during that time, my aunt has already when I was born in 1995. Yeah, that's when she moved to Cairo. So she decided to tell my mom, okay, why don't you come to Egypt? Maybe there's an opportunity for you to kind of be resettled. So that made my mom to just decide, okay, we're packing. We're just gonna go to Egypt because there'll be better opportunities for us and even for her to be resettled to a different, a third country. So at that time, it was mainly 3 countries. It was the U.S., Canada, and Australia. I think even until now, it's still the same case. So yeah, so we just decided. Yeah, my mom just packed everything, bought a ticket for a boat ticket, a train ticket. So yeah, so we started with a train first, and I still find it funny that I can remember all the details of that journey because I was very young, but I can remember how it was waking up really early, trying to get all these a yellow card, passport, all these things just to prepare us to be able to travel. And then we got on the train, and it was a really long journey because you can all I was able to see was a massive desert. The train was just going on and on and on. It was the whole night of traveling, and then you get to you get to Aswan. No, not Aswan. You get to a port called Wadi Halfa Port. So it's the port that connects Sudan to the Red Sea. So
let me pause you for a second. And I want to pull up a map. Paul, there should be a little shield at the bottom, and then if you click on it, there should be something about you're muted right now. Technical difficulties.
It happens once an episode. I forget that I'm on mute. I was not looking at either one of you. I was trying to find the map to go to. So I'm almost there. Give me a second.
Okay. So are you going to share your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Cool. Yeah, because I want to see this journey, and we might not have to. We'll probably cut this part out specifically.
I don't know why we would. We should keep it.
The technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Zach doesn't care. He probably likes the organic nature of this.
So it's interesting. Did you leave to go to Cairo? Did your mom decide to go more for the economic opportunity in Cairo being better, or was there something in Sudan that you were trying to did you have a refugee status or anything like that?
Okay, so I was really young at that time, so I didn't really have an understanding of why we were moving. But I think for my mom, it was more of just being able to find a better opportunity somewhere else because there was a lot of issues going on in Khartoum, especially if you're South Sudanese. I mean, if you're from the South, you're not really being treated fairly because of the war that was going on. Yeah, even I think there was a war going on, so there was a lot of tensions. So majority of the people who used to live in the South ended up moving to Khartoum, seeking opportunities and education. But that really wasn't the case because they ended up even being internally displaced in their own country. So yeah, so there are stories of people even living in camps and places and houses made out of cardboards. There were conditions like that, So some of the few lucky ones were.
And can you tell us a little bit about? Yeah, I just want to hear a little bit about the nature of the war, why it was going on, how it started. I think over here in America, we heard about Darfur a lot, but we didn't understand very much about it.
Yeah, so there were actually two Sudanese civil war, and the first one started from around the time of independence, 1956, all the way to early 70s when a peace agreement was signed. And when that peace agreement was signed, it gave the South some sort of like a semi-autonomous status. Like things were like we had like a parliament built, there was a government, and all that was happening. Some good things were happening. Like we had a couple of peaceful years, and then around the 1980s, another war started, and that was because of what's his name? His President Nimeri at the time decided to impose some Sharia laws as a result of Sudan was going through some economic hardship, so they had to like go to countries in the Middle East, like if I'm not mistaken, it was Saudi Arabia, and they got some loans from Saudi Arabia, but then part of the conditions for giving the loans was imposing Sharia laws in part of the South. So when the people in the South heard that, when the government in the South heard that about these conditions, they decided to revolt and started like a military revolution against the government in Sudan, and that was the start of the Second Sudanese civil war, and that started from the early 1980s. But you can check that because I don't remember the timeline exactly. But it was around the 1980s. And then also like around the 1980s, things also got worse because Omar Bashir came into power as well through a military coup. So he made things even worse by trying to end the armed conflict in the South using his military power. So that just made things even worse. There's a lot of people were getting killed. Like it was just a humanitarian crisis, and things just weren't too great at all. That led to a lot of South Sudanese spreading, like going to places like Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, and just becoming refugees, and that resulted into the Lost Boys, and so it was and then some also went into some went to Khartoum, and then from there they were able to find their ways to Cairo, Egypt.
So to tie this into your story, did your was your mom living in Khartoum with you two because of that displacement?
Part of it, like most of it was as a result of that, because her mom had to literally put her on a plane to go to Khartoum and stay with her aunt, but then just things didn't work out that well, so she ended up having to live on her own and just try to find ways to survive. And then luckily my aunt was able to go to Egypt, and then as a result of that she was able to help my mom to get a ticket and come to Egypt.
Awesome. So that journey, we're looking at a map right now on Google Maps, and it looks like right on the line where South Sudan. Can you see it, by the way?
Yeah, I can see it.
So first of all, right on the line where South Sudan meets Sudan, it seems like that's the tree line for the a lot of like the forest and rainforest. So it's like South Sudan seems more forested, and then North Sudan seems more like a desert.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, there's literally a swamp area. Like there's like a long swampy area that divides the two countries. So even like by nature, like even nature is just trying to make sure that it's really showing us that we are two different countries and not one. So it's just crazy when I think about it.
So your journey from Khartoum all the way up to, can we zoom in on Khartoum a little bit? You took a train from Khartoum all the way up Sudan, and it was just like all desert, you said? So what was that like?
It was, I remember having to, like my mom had to like made me and my sister like sleep on the ground, and then it was just hard to sleep because the train was just shaking. And then later on, like we were told that there was like an issue, and the train itself almost like came off the railway. And it was just like
wow,
a scary experience. So we literally had to you take the train from there all the way to Port Sudan, and then you get on a boat, and then you get into Egypt.
Okay, so Port Sudan's on the Red Sea, and then you go up the Red Sea, and then jump into Egypt, and there's Aswan right there, which is right near the Aswan Dam, where was it King Nasser dammed up the Nile to create that fake lake?
Yeah. There's President Nasser, yeah.
Okay, and then how did you get from Aswan all the way up the Nile to Cairo?
So I think we took a train. Yeah, so we took a train from there all the way to Cairo, because I remember getting dropped off at a train station in Cairo, and then getting on a metro, which was like for me it was really exciting at that time. I was just 3 years old. So so I remember using a train, then getting on the metro, and then taking a taxi, and then being dropped off at my auntie's house.
Dang. Look at that. There it is. El Qahira. So you were kind of, I mean, I want to say it seems like you were young enough that was it still a big shock to your life, the change from Khartoum to Cairo, or is Cairo kind of most of what you remember?
Okay. I mean, I remember a lot of. Okay, I remember arriving, and then at that time, like the good thing is there was like a lot of Sudanese, we had like a really big family, and there was like a lot of the Sudanese community was really big. So I remember like a lot of events, especially because we arrived around November. So like literally around towards the end of November is when we arrived to Cairo, and I remember it was almost Christmas time, and I remember all these events. I remember going to church. I remember meeting family members who, share the same family name as mine, and it's like people who later on ended up being resettled to different countries. So I remember that. I remember things were also a bit nicer. I don't know, maybe just because I remember that because I was just young and I didn't really know what was happening. But I remember things were a little bit better around.
So there was a cool community of South Sudanese. A lot of them, it sounds like, with your last name. Were they like in your tribe too? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. They're mostly from my tribe. Yeah, mostly from my.
And does your tribe have a name?
Yeah, it's called Moru.
Okay. And what language do they speak?
So the language they speak is also called Moru.
Okay. And
Moru.
Moru. And then why am I thinking of Dinka too?
Okay, because the Dinkas are they're the biggest tribe in South Sudan. So most of the time, whenever someone meets someone from South Sudan, they assume that they are from Dinka or Nuer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Moru is one of the smaller tribes.
Yeah, I think we're probably the 10th biggest tribe.
Okay, but then they had a strong community in Cairo. It sounds like. So tell us a little bit about like being a kid in Cairo. Like what was that like? Yeah,
I mean it was. I feel like in the first couple of years it was it wasn't really. It was okay because I just didn't know what was happening. Because as I grew older, because I remember we ended up having to move from my aunt's place to where I actually ended up living for close to 12 years, literally. So I ended up moving from Arab Mahdi to a neighborhood called Hadaik al Mahdi, and that's where like the majority of all the South Sudanese refugees live, and like even until to this day, majority of them still live there.
Hadaik al Mahdi.
Hadaik al Mahdi.
And that's where the learning centers are, right?
Yeah, that's where Hope was, and then you just have to take like transport, and then you get to Mahdi Jadid is where what's it called? Far Africa was at some point, and then but before that it was close to Arab Mahdi, so it was very close by. So I remember having to, like in the first couple of years, I wasn't able to go to school, me and my sister. So what my mom would do, she would lock me and my sister inside the house, and then she'd go to work. And yeah, so we'd probably just have to watch TV or stay on the balcony. So that's like one of the things that we do a lot of, would just be watching like what's happening in the street. And yeah, like it wasn't easy because in the beginning when we first moved into Egypt, we didn't have our UNHCR card. So before you can be officially a refugee and get like protection from being deported by the police, you need to register with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees first. So in the first like 3 years, we didn't have that yet because my mom just hasn't been registered and all that stuff. So yeah, like we had to live in a little bit of like fear. And yeah, sometimes like I remember there was a time when my dad went to work, and then it was me and my mom and my sister, like we're left in the house. And around that time the police were rounding up Sudanese and Africans who, they're just like they had like a very interesting name for it. It was like Operation Rounding Blacks or something. Just a name of that sort. So basically what they would do is like they would go to every single house, and then they would knock for as long as they can, and just, trying to make you just go and open the door. So I remember the police came, and then they were knocking on our door. They would ring the bell, and then we just knew that, okay, we shouldn't just don't make any noise. Is what my mom was telling me at that time. Don't make any noise, stay quiet. So they're knocking on the door for close to 15 minutes. And then they went on to our neighbor's door, knocked, the neighbor opened, and then they took everyone in the house, even the two kids. And they ended up spending close to 3 days in prison. And after that, they were released. So yeah, it was a lot of, like in the first couple of years, it was just a lot of fear that, you might get arrested, and if you get arrested, then that's it. You'll be put on a train back to Sudan. And then at that time, for the Sudanese government, whenever they receive anyone coming from Egypt, especially like South Sudanese, they assume that they were part of the rebel groups fighting in the South. So most of the time, you just be taken into jail, and then they'll be able to just spend time in jail, and then they will release you, and then you just become, again, another internally displaced person. So yeah, like it was just like that element of fear that you go in the street, like you just might just want to go and get bread or fruits, and then the police would just arrest you. And luckily, my dad was able to get me and my mom and sister added to his UNHCR file, because he had a case with them. So before you can be resettled, like as I mentioned before, you have to be registered. And once you get registered, they open a case for you, and then they give you that UNHCR card, which you can use to get a residency permit, so that if the police ever find you in the street, they won't just arrest you and take you and put you in jail. So it's sort of like a protection against being deported.
So that first year, those first couple of years where there was a lot of fear, your mom was going out and working to try to provide for you and your sister. What work was she doing? And was she worried about, what if the police came to her where she was working and just decided to ask her there?
Yeah, okay, so at that time, like for most of the South Sudanese refugees who were in Egypt, like you weren't allowed to work. Like the only sort of job that you can find is to either be a janitor or a maid, or if you can just, find work with those small shops in Egypt, or a supermarket if you're lucky. So she got a job as a maid with an Egyptian family, and that's used to be like her work for like the time that we are living in Egypt. And luckily, she ended up working with a really nice family who were nice to her, and allowing her to be able to like come home early so that she can take care of me and my sister. Yeah, and then my dad was also trying to find like work a little bit because at that same time he was also studying, so it was hard for him to find a job as well. But yeah, that's how it was.
Did your dad come up with you? I remember your dad is a professor, right? So did he come up with you at first when you went from Khartoum to Cairo, or did he stay there?
Okay. So I think I have to clarify this. So like when I was born in Sudan, before I was born, my biological father was gone like a long time ago before I was born. So I didn't really get to know him. So I don't know who my biological father is, but yeah, when we came to Egypt, my mom met my stepfather, who I now call my dad. Yeah, and she met him when he was studying at the American University in Cairo. Because before that, he studied in the University of Juba, and then he was able to get a scholarship to continue his studies in the American University in Cairo, and then he used to also get opportunities to go to the UK and attend classes with I think there's a center for refugee studies in University of Oxford, so he would go there every once in a while to spend some time taking classes and attend classes mostly.
Wow. And is he still doing that? Is he still a professor?
Yeah, I mean he's currently a professor in the University of Juba, so he teaches the graduate students there. He teaches them. So he even ended up doing his PhD at the University of Oxford in peace and development studies.
Wow. Oh, that's very cool.
So now he teaches in Juba.
Okay. So you said that, you weren't allowed to work, or South Sudanese people weren't allowed to work. What about school? Like for you and your sister, when it came time to start going to school, what was that like?
I remember the first school or like education center that I attended was called St. Joseph. And I remember my mom signing us up to go to our school. Yeah, like she was really excited because before that she was spending a lot of time trying to teach me and my sister, even like to write, from 1 to 100 and then learn all the ABCDs to Z. Yeah, she was just having a hard time doing that because she wasn't fortunate enough to be able to go to school. But despite that, she wanted to make sure that we have access to education. So she signed us up to this school called St. Joseph, and it was around 20 minutes or less, 10 minutes away from my house by microbus. So I remember going there for, was it a month or 2 months? So it was a very small school. It was literally a 5-bedroom apartment where there were 4 classes, and then there was a kitchen, and there was a room for the teachers, and then we had like a small like area where we go out for lunch, like during lunch breaks. So anyway, given that the school was literally on the ground floor and it was a residential building, we had the people living in the building were constantly complaining about noises and all that stuff and telling us, oh, this place is not supposed to be a school. So anyway, after 2 months, the school was shut down, and we were just left without school, and we had to spend close to 2 years at home because there's no other school available. Like the only one that was.
Do you know why they had the school in the first of all in an apartment in a residential building? Why they couldn't have it in like a regular school building?
I mean, the main thing is they wouldn't have been allowed to have access to like a bigger space because of the different laws that were in Egypt around that time, and all the permits and all the documents that are required in order for you to register a school. So these schools were actually not even legal. They were just meant to. They're known as centers. So I think at that time the Egyptian government didn't have issues with it being a center, like an educational center, but then they had issues with it being called a school. So the main problem is we're okay with it being called an educational center, but we're not okay with it being called a school. And even for a refugee student trying to get into an Egyptian school, that itself was impossible, given that you still have to go to the Sudanese embassy asking for, documents. And, by the virtue of you being a refugee, you actually give up on your right as a Sudanese citizen. So we couldn't go to the embassy and ask for documents because, by going to the UNHCR, we are telling them that our country is no longer safe for us. So yeah, we weren't allowed to go to the embassy at all. So that was another problem that we had to face.
Why would the government not want like refugees to be able to set up their own schools and teach their own kids?
At that time, I honestly don't know why, but from my understanding now, that I rather that it has to do with Egypt's relationship with Sudan, because by allowing refugees to set up schools in Egypt, it kind of at the time it kind of messes up Egypt's relationship with Sudan, because for Sudan they're saying that no, we don't have any issues. Those people are not refugees, but they're not really refugees. They're just people who have rebelled against the government. So you actually shouldn't be giving them space to do anything. So I think that was the argument against giving refugees space to set up schools.
Wow. Okay. Do you want to pause, Paul, and ask some map questions or something?
Sure. I mean, who doesn't enjoy map questions?
Yeah.
So, Zach, can you help me figure out where you lived the first few years you were in Cairo?
Okay. So I think, so this is, I think we might have to zoom out. Okay.
Should we look up Mahdi?
Yeah. I think you should look up Mahdi.
Spell Mahdi?
Maadi.
Yep.
And then Mahdi al-Hayek should be right next to it.
I think you should write Mahdi, and then you should write Road 9B.
Road 9.
Yeah.
9B?
Yeah. That should. Why is it not sure?
Yeah, you can hit any one of those that say Road 9 Mahdi, Egypt. Yeah, this should be good. There's Road 9. There's a KFC.
I see the KFC.
Zoom out a little bit.
Okay, cool. So I think from here I can. Whew.
And then I think if you go up and to the right.
Yeah.
Okay, right down there on the, at the bottom of the screen, just to the right a little bit, is Cairo American College. That's where I went to high school.
Okay, right there.
Yep.
Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I can.
CAC. So I think Mahdi Hayek is to the north, I want to say.
Yeah, because this is, I think you have to go up.
And then maybe to the right a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
Because I know this area, so or maybe towards the left.
To the left.
Yeah.
There's Hadaiq al-Mahdi. It looks like a grocery store.
Yeah. Wow. So it's.
Do Do you mean zoom out?
Yeah, I think you probably have to zoom out.
There's the metro for Hadaiq Almaty.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it.
Oh, MGM.
Yep. Found it. Yeah, that's where it is. So my house was literally 5 minutes from the metro station. Because I remember just being able to leave my house and then I'll walk all the way to the metro station. If you want to go to church or
the metro station, Hadaiq Almaty metro on the top left.
Yeah.
Ah.
So you were right near there.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't far from the river.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know, I just feel like the map makes it look a little bit like too.
A lot closer than it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember being able to just walk there. So I remember doing that a lot sometimes.
Well, this says number 9B.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So there's like a mosque nearby. Yeah, I remember that area very well. And then on the other side was where my high school was, where Hope was. Okay, still there.
Do you think that Google Maps would have African Hope?
Nah, I don't think so. But this is the area. I know it.
So tell us about African Hope and Found Africa learning centers.
Yeah, so like going back to the education story, so after 2 years of being home, we just heard that there's a new school that is opening up. It's the same school, still San Joseph, but then this time it's going to be a little bit further. It's going to be in a neighborhood called Madi Jadida, so it's New Madi. So I remember how excited my mom was about finally, being able to get us back to school again. So I remember starting my schooling. It was grade 1 there, and it was still the same scenario. A ground floor apartment, and then the rest of the building is residential. So I remember it was six rooms, and then we had grade 1 all the way to grade 6, and then I think at some point we also had a room for kindergarten as well, and everything was in Arab.
These rooms were like the size of a room. Like, how big were these rooms roughly? And then how many kids were in each one?
I mean, the rooms were really. I think the rooms were really tiny. Then the good thing is the school tried as much as they can to fit as many students as they can. And I remember there were times when there would be 30 or 40 of us in that tiny space, and it was really hard. And there would be 3 or 4 students sitting together in one long bench that was only meant for 2 or 3 people. Sometimes you have to push it all the way to 5 students to sit there. And then that's how we used to learn.
Were the teachers and the principal, the administrative parts of these schools, were they just regular Sudanese people also that just wanted to provide education?
So during my time, it was mostly the Sudanese refugees who have come earlier in the 1980s seeking education in Egypt. So majority of them were actually college educated people who, they came to Egypt seeking education, got the education, but then they weren't able to go back to Sudan, so they ended up staying in Egypt. So instead of not doing anything or just finding jobs in fields that are not related to what they've learned, they've decided to, how about opening up the school and trying to help those young Sudanese who don't have access to any means of education. So it was really helpful having them there. So they have some of them were really educated, and I think to some extent I feel like my my best primary school education was in those couple of years, because they were really dedicated towards ensuring that I and other people like me have access to a good education, so that even if we end up getting resettled to another country, we won't really struggle academically. So that was really helpful. I remember, still this day, I remember how I wasn't really able to read, especially in my first year. Yeah, and I struggled a lot. But then there was this one teacher who was studying law during that time. Yeah, and he would come to my house and help me, he would tutor me on how to read and all this stuff, and even do math with him. And yeah, it was really helpful. And until to this day, I'm grateful that I had that opportunity, and even being able to just learn in a language that is not even mine at all, because everything was in Arabic. And to be honest, the only Arabic that I knew at the time was the Arabic that was spoken in my house, which was Sudanese Arabic, and the one that I used to get around in Egypt, which is Egyptian Arabic. But then for me to be able to write or read, that was still impossible. But then through the help of those teachers, I got better at reading and writing. And then also the good thing is, at the time we had access to the Egyptian curriculum. So those schools were able to convince the Egyptian government to provide us with books from the Egyptian curriculum. So that's what we were taught using.
So most of the language that you used was Arabic that you learned, and that was like Fusha, like modern standard Arabic.
Yeah.
Did you also was there also English being taught?
Yeah, there was English. Yeah, there was English being taught, but then it was just English for the sake of saying that, okay, you're learning English and it's part of the curriculum, but it wasn't really the type of English that I later on had the opportunity to learn. Because I remember how it took me a long time to even be able to read and speak English, and I had to move to a different school and start everything in English. But yeah,
yes. So at this point, you spoke Moru, you spoke Sudanese Arabic, you spoke Egyptian Arabic, and those are different. And then you also were now learning to read, write, and speak modern standard Arabic, Fusha. So, three dialects of one language, and then Moru. Am I missing? Were there any other languages that you speak?
No, but with the Moru dialect, I can't really say that I know how to speak it, because my mom didn't really, when we moved to Egypt, she wasn't really speaking to us in Moru, because most of the time she's just tired coming back from work. So yeah, so I've literally lost the chance to be able to learn my native or my tribe language, dialect. So that is gone. So I only know how to speak Arabic and English at that point. Yeah.
Okay, but it's Arabic, but you have to speak different dialects of it based on where you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one of the crazy things about the language in general is Arabic in the Gulf states versus Arabic in the Levantine region versus Egyptian versus Moroccan. They're all so different.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how your path crossed with mine. And that started with, I think, you meeting Mama Lance, right?
Yeah. I mean, if there's any, I don't know how to describe it, but I just I always remember those moments, and yeah, it brings tears of joy to my eyes, because I'm just because I remember how it was at Found Africa, and yeah, I remember how I was in fifth grade. That's when I've shifted to a new school, because my mom was like, okay, you have learned enough Arabic, it's time for you to shift to school where they teach in English. So yeah, so by that time I moved to Found Africa. I've been there for close to 3 years. Yeah, and it was around 2009, and that's when I think late to towards the end of 2009 is when your mom started coming to our school. Then she would teach. They should teach the sixth graders or the seventh graders. Anyway, but yeah, and then she would bring us books to read. And there was time when she would like take us to CAC to go and read there as well. So yeah, like at that time, like I wasn't really a book type of person. Like I wouldn't read books at all. Like the only thing I would focus on is my schoolwork, just getting those grades, and that's about it. And yeah, like I didn't really know like where my future was heading, or because at that time there was nothing was going forward. Like even with the resettlement issue, like we weren't really, I didn't know exactly what was happening, even though we were told, okay, that you'll be resettled to go to this country. And yeah, so I'm going to bring this up, but yeah. So at that time, I think before that, like a couple of years before that, we were told that we'll be resettled to the United States, and that's where like we would end up going to. But then like that was a plan for us to end up going there. But then my dad had an issue with that because at that time he was studying, he was doing his master's, and also he was also like has already secured a scholarship to do his PhD. So the problem with us going to the States was that meant that he would end up losing his scholarship. So that kind of ended up stalling the resettlement process for us. So we just ended up living in Egypt for like a couple more years. So anyway, going back to Far Africa again. So yeah, like I just didn't know what I was gonna do for schooling, and yeah, I think it was towards it was in 2000. Okay, wait, yeah, let me just think, just trying to remember. So yeah, around 2000 and I think it was around 2010 when I was, I'm getting the dates wrong, but anyway.
Well, we lived in Cairo from 2008 to 2012 or 2013. I left in 2012.
Yeah. Okay. I think I remembered. Yeah. So I passed my fifth grade. Okay, was it fifth or sixth grade? I'm not sure. I don't remember. So anyway, so at that time I had a teacher. His name is Yassine, and then Yassine reached out to me and told me like, "Yo, Zach, why don't the eighth grade examination is going to happen in March of 2010. Why don't you just skip seventh grade and then you just go straight to eighth grade, and then because I think you can pass this exam and then you'll be able to just, I don't know, because spending a year is going to be like a waste of your time." And yeah, I was very anxious about that, but then he just told me like, do it. And yeah, so it was a very crucial exam because in order for you to go to high school, you had to sit for the Sudanese basic certificate examination. It's basically like going from having to do an exam to go from middle school to high school. Yeah, so it was very crucial. So I decided to take a gamble and go ahead and just join the eighth grade. And at that time is when I got to meet your mom, and then she was also teaching us. She was teaching my class food and nutrition, and there was 10 of us all studying and learning, like just studying to pass that exam. And so I ended up being I ended up being the only one who passed in my class of 10 people. So that was like it was a big thing for me. So I was like, wow, so I can do this. And and then around that time is also when Mrs. Vance was talking to me about maybe like being able to help me enroll in correspondence or do like online high school while also going to the other Sudanese refugee center called Africa Hub. So it was Tia said if you pass, then I'll be able to help you enroll you in this program so that you also be able to have not just one high school degree but two. And so I passed, and I remember remember when I passed, like I think it was towards May of 2010 when she took me to CAC, and then she was like, okay, I'm gonna enroll you in the Boy Scouts. And to be honest, I didn't know what the Boy Scouts was all about. And yeah, it was a very confusing thing to me. I was like, well, okay, so what's the Boy Scouts? And yeah, I just found myself in the car with a bunch of other boys, and then just being in the desert, and then trying to ride a horse and clean a horse hooves, and
oh yeah,
all these things, and going to a farm and getting beaten by mosquitoes. So yeah, it was a very confusing but also exciting time for me. Yeah,
I think she really saw something. I think she really saw something in you and decided to invest. And yeah, part of that, I don't know if you and I met when you first joined the Boy Scouts, or you and I met just because my mom started to become more involved with your, with helping you. And so, but we eventually did meet, and Boy Scouts was awesome, wasn't it? Do you remember any of the stories? I remember one we were, so our camping trips would always be like out in the desert. We'd drive out from Cairo, and it would just be dunes as far as you could see, and there'd be no clouds in the sky. And once it could also get really windy sometimes, and it really hurt because the sand, when it's really windy, would sting you when it hit you. And so once we were all setting up tents, and like usually when you set up a tent, you stake it to the ground. But there's nothing to really stake it to because it's just sand. And so these two kids, like, I don't remember who it was, but they set up their tent, and as soon as they set it up, it started catching air like a parachute and just started like flying across the desert. And then they started running after it, and then a couple other people started running after it. And for a minute, it looked like it was just gone. Like it looked like they'd never catch it because the wind was so strong. But it finally slowed down enough, and they caught up. And every time after that, we learned that you always have to throw a bag inside your tent before you make it 3D.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was around. I think that was in Nsokna. We went to Nsokna because we're next to the beach. Okay, maybe yeah. So I think it was very windy on that day, and we just had to like. I'm not sure if it was Yusuf and the other kids or some of the new Boy Scouts, but yeah, but like it was fun. Like it was a lot of fun, and I remember if there's one thing that I always take from the Boy Scouts is that feeling of belonging to something for the first time in my life. Because growing up, I always felt okay, I'm Sudanese, but I'm also in this country that sometimes, like most of the time, I just don't feel like I belong there at all. But then when I joined the Boy Scouts, and I remember the first time when I had to learn the words of the Pledge of Allegiance, and even though I was an American, it felt nice to just belong somewhere, or just find something that connects you to something.
Yeah.
Rather than all just feeling like you don't really connect to it, like don't belong anywhere. So yeah, it was really good feeling to have, and just being able to just go to all these places. Like I never imagined that like throughout living in Egypt that I don't know, go to places like the White Desert or the Black Desert, and even go to Sinai and all these places. Like for me, just has always been the places, my neighborhood, church, when that was about it, but Boy Scouts and your family, like just really help, opening all these doors and opportunities for me. And like, that's one of those things that I'm really grateful for to this day. Like it wasn't for that, I don't know, like I wouldn't even be here today. I don't know. Like I don't know where I would be, but it was a very special time for me.
It was awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing we did, you came with us to Philmont too, right?
Yeah.
So that's like Philmont's probably the most famous Boy Scout ranch, summer camp in the whole country. And we went as a troop from Cairo one summer. and it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we had cake on top of Baldy Mountain.
Yeah, Mount Baldy.
Yeah.
Was it your birthday?
Yeah, Mount Baldy. No, I think it was someone else's birthday, but I remember just having cake on top of that mountain. It was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. It's a really storied place. So you joined you joined when you were, was it like 14 or 15? So, it would have been really hard to, so 15. So you only had 3 years to like work on your rank. Did you end up being first class or star?
I think I was, what's the one before? I think I was the first class.
First class?
Yeah.
Yeah, tenderfoot, second class, first class.
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah, that's where I ended first class.
Yeah, so
it was exciting.
Paul, do you want to jump in or ask anything?
No, you got to go to Philmont in New Mexico.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
New Mexico, yeah, not Arizona. For some reason, I thought it was Arizona. Yeah, it's New Mexico.
Yeah, that's a beautiful part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing part of the country.
Yeah,
wow.
It was really something else. It was cool. And we also had these, you get like a group of shirts for your troop, and everyone else had like, Houston, Texas, or Denver, Colorado. And we had Cairo, Egypt, and it just looked badass. And everyone was like, dang, you guys are from Cairo? We're like, yeah, what up? So
yeah,
it was cool.
That was fun. Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. Before we started recording, Zach was telling me he's been to more than 20 states in the U.S. And I think that's more than the average American, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I calculated them correctly, but yeah, I think it should be around that, because we did a road trip, right?
Yeah.
And we crossed a lot of states. Yeah.
That was a fun time. That one summer we started up in the northeast, and then we just went all the way down. All the way down to North Carolina, at least, maybe further. So that was cool. But so you're a very well traveled guy. Let's what happened after you kind of said that you weren't sure what your future was, and so how did is it ALA, African Leadership Academy? How did that end up on your radar, and how did you end up getting to go there?
Yeah, so the way it started was in Cairo, because we had a meeting. It was me, Mrs. Lance, and Brooke Comer, who was she still works at the American University in Cairo. So we had like a meeting with her and just discussing like the plans of, okay, so what am I going to do next? It was like, it was the summer of 2012. And we're just having this conversation. And then in the midst of that, she started by mentioning Cairo Covenant School. School first, where I ended up going to in Cairo and graduated from in 2014. And then she also mentioned the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I would say at that time I was very skeptical about having to go to South Africa, because I've never felt like it's a place that I would want to go to, despite its interesting and rich history. So, but I did. She ended up connecting me with a South Sudanese student who was studying there at that time, and had like a Skype call. And he actually used to live in Egypt as well. So he's like, yeah, you can do it. You should apply. It's a very, it's a great place to be, because you'll be meeting all these students from all over Africa. You'll be, learning all these interesting things. So I applied, but before applying, I ended up joining Cairo Covenant School in the winter of 2013. So that was a very interesting experience to me as well, because it was my first time going to like a proper school where I have a chance of getting a high school degree that is accredited, and also, a curriculum that is also accredited. So, and then there's like teachers who were qualified and all that. So it was a very, it was a fun time for me, because I never thought I would end up going to school like that. So I applied to LA first time, and I made it all the way. They used to have like two rounds. So the first round you apply, then if you get into the next round, which is the finalist round, where you get to the interview stage, and you also write an entrance exam. So I ended up reaching that stage, did my interview, but then I wasn't admitted. So I felt a little bit, I felt down by that, but I was like, okay, fine, I will, because I was 18 at that time, and they allow you to apply, so you have to be between the ages of 15 to 19 during that time. But now you have to be between the ages of 15 to 18. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'll give this thing another shot next year. And it was also good because it gave me the chance to finish high school in Cairo Covenant. So I was able to go back for the fall of 2013, go back to school, then do all my schoolwork, reapply to ALA again. And this time I got in, and I also managed to finish and graduate from high school. So so I ended up in the fall of 2014, I ended up in Johannesburg, South Africa, in the African Leadership Academy, where I spent 2 years learning African studies, entrepreneurial leadership, writing and rhetoric classes, even took math classes, I took business classes, economics, and did a research course on international relations. So it was I would say that South Africa was a very interesting and challenging time for me, because for the first time I was in a different environment where, to some extent, I just felt lost, because I got there and I was overwhelmed by the amount of learning that I needed to do, and the kind of people that I was with. It was a very competitive environment. So in my first year, I struggled a lot to even thrive there, because I just felt like I don't really belong there. And it wasn't fun at all. The first year wasn't fun at all. So I was just trying as much as I can to keep up with things, schoolwork, and all the other things, just getting adjusted to an environment like that, where I didn't really know everyone, and I was challenged in so many ways, my beliefs, my values, So it was just a very challenging time for me. But towards the second year, that's when I got the hang of things, and I was able to understand who am I, what I stand for, and what are my, what do I think of, what my beliefs are, what I think of certain issues and certain challenges. So it was 2 years that changed a lot about who I think of myself as a person.
So it was a competitive environment, and you had to do some catching up. And you were handed a pretty rough hand to start with in life. Your education was kind of put off for years. Did you find, even with all the competitiveness, did you find a group of people or a place to belong, at ALA?
Yeah. And it's this, I was saying, my second year is when I was able to find my foot, and I was able to, make friendships with people that I still talk to until now. So that was I feel like having friends and people that, you can rely on helped a lot in my second year and even made it a lot easier, and
Did you have any adventures in Johannesburg or South Africa?
Not really. I mean, our campus was we weren't really allowed to go out that much because of how the security situation is in Johannesburg. But yeah, there were times when we had the chance to go out and we watched. I remember going to the stadium, the FNB stadium, to watch a derby. So that was a fun thing to do. We're going on hiking trips sometimes.
What's a derby? Like a derby for what?
Football derby, like the two biggest teams in South Africa. It's called the Soweto Derby.
Like football, like soccer?
Yeah, soccer. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So I remember going there to watch it, and it was a packed stadium. There were like vuvuzelas everywhere. There was a lot of noise, and that was fun. And then I remember also being part of an MUN conference that took place in my school. It was called the Model African Union conference that took place in my school, and I was able to participate in that. It was a good learning experience for me as well. And also being a student ambassador, like being able to meeting guests and all these different people who come to ALA, and I give them a tour of the campus. They ask me questions and just get to interact with them. So that was fun as well, because it gave me the chance to get over my fear of public speaking and speaking in front of a big group of people. Yeah, and I also ended up doing a My Story where I stood up in an auditorium full of close to 400 people and tell them my story, where I came from, all that stuff. So that was also fun to just be able to share that with people. And I also played Frisbee while I was there. So that was a fun thing to do. It was
nice.
The only sport that I played there.
Well, 400 is probably a little bit more than our podcast will reach, but maybe someday it'll be bigger.
Amen.
You're downplaying the podcast, Daniel.
That's true. Yeah. We're huge, dude. You're about to be famous, Zach.
Maybe internationally famous, right? Hey, so when you finished at ALA, was that considered a college degree of any sort?
No, it was sort of a pre-college kind of degree, because I ended up with a diploma in African Studies and entrepreneurial leadership.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then after ALA, did you stay in Johannesburg, or did you go to Uganda?
Okay, so what happened was after finishing ALA, because I was also applying to all these colleges, but then I wasn't able to get into any of them, so I decided to take a gap year. And my plan was to go to South Sudan and kind of work there, probably teach or just be engaged with the community there. But unfortunately, when I went there, luckily, we had this reunion for all the ALA alumni in Kampala. So I ended up going to the reunion in Kampala, Uganda. And then while I was there, because I left in the morning, and then at night, an armed conflict started in South Sudan. So I ended up getting stuck in Uganda for up to a year. And then my family, my mom and my sisters, had to join me there later on as a result of the conflict that was going on in South Sudan. And that's how I ended up spending a whole year in Uganda with my family, just trying to help them settle into Kampala.
So you were on your way to South Sudan, but you stopped in Kampala just for that reunion?
No, I wasn't. I landed in South Sudan. I was there for 2 weeks, and then I was told I signed up for this reunion. So I was like, oh, cool. It'll be a nice opportunity to connect with other LA alumni and see what they're doing, and maybe I can be part of that. So yeah, it was just supposed to be like a 3-day thing, and then I come back to South Sudan and try to figure out what I want to do. But it ended up being a whole year in Kampala, Uganda.
And just because
go ahead, Daniel.
In that 3 days, that's when an armed conflict started.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy timing.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine you're living in Virginia in the States, and you're going to travel to North Carolina for a 3-day weekend, and you get stuck in North Carolina for a year? That seems crazy.
Yeah,
it's just one of those, like, I just couldn't believe it. So, but yeah, I mean, I ended up staying there. My family joined me, and then for a year, that's when I decided, okay, since I wasn't really doing much, because other than just like being there with my family, I started looking for schools again. And one of the schools that came up was the African Leadership University. So at that time, they only had one campus. One was in Mauritius. And yeah, so I was looking up, and then one of my teachers from LA told me, was like, oh, you should apply to the African Leadership University, because you'll be opening a new campus in Kigali, Rwanda, which is literally next door to Uganda. And it was one of those moments I was like, wow, Rwanda, like I was shocked and I was a little surprised. It's like, of all places, Rwanda. Because, when I think of Rwanda, I just remember watching movies and about what happened in 1995. Yeah, so I don't really remember I don't think of a lot of positivity. But I did apply after doing my research of what's happening in the country. And yeah, I got in the summer of 2017, and it was a good decision that I made, because it brought me into an African country where things actually work, where there's like systems that are put in place to ensure that there's accountability, that there's transport, the roads are clean, and there's internet, there's all the things that are there to make sure that there's basically a government that provides services to people. And that was really exciting to me. It was like, finally there's an example of an African country where things work. And I'm grateful that I made that decision to come here. And yeah, like I'm currently almost done with my degree in international business and trade, and will be graduating in February 11th, 2021. So just a couple more months and I'll be an alumni.
Yeah, not far away. That's awesome. Hey, Zach, have you been to Mauritius lately?
No.
Do you have friends in Mauritius?
Yeah, I do.
Did you happen to mention this podcast to your friend in Mauritius?
No, but I would definitely do that. I mean, I have a lot of friends.
We've been downloaded in Mauritius 3 or 4 times.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I think you're the connection.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know who else it could be.
Yeah, I didn't know where Mauritius was until I saw the download.
Oh, wow.
It's out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, right off the east coast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, what is so you're in Rwanda, and that's where you're talking to us from African Leadership University in Kigali.
Mm-hmm.
When you graduate, what are you looking forward to doing in your future? Do you have any plans or ideas?
Yeah. So, well, I'm hoping to go to grad school. So that's something that I'm currently working on, just trying to send out applications and all that stuff. So I'm hoping to pursue a master's degree in international development or international relations. But yeah, just trying to work on things that are related to governance and development and how to set up systems in place and policies to ensure that the people, like normal everyday citizens, can have access to services. So that's especially in the sector of education, like given my history and given that one thing that I've always tried to have access to is proper and quality education. That's something that I also want to see whether it can be given to other people as well. And also something that I'm thinking hopefully one day I'll be able to work in is trying to help refugees in their ensuring that refugees are not seen as people who are a threat to, like when they get, I don't know, like when they go to a host country, that they're actually seen as people who can contribute. So try to see if I can end up working with the UNHCR and creating programs where refugees are not just integrated economically, but where it can be like holistic, where you can have the economic and the social integration together, so that things like what happens in like what's currently happens in Europe, where refugees are just seen as, oh, they're coming here to take our jobs, they're terrorists, things like that, and also just try to ensure that when I just lost my train of thoughts, but just trying to ensure that when they have to escape their home country and go to another country, the communities where they will be hosted in see them as people and just be trained that, okay, these are people, have campaigns for the host community so they understand what those people have to go through, seeking safety. Because what tends to happen is, like my situation in Egypt, I feel like what could have been done better was the UNHCR being able to teach the normal Egyptian citizen that, okay, this is what's happening in Sudan. These people are suffering as a result of X, Y, Z. So when they come in here, they're not after your jobs or after your, schools or whatever. They're just here seeking safety. Because when you do that, you allow people to have some sort of empathy and be more empathetic. But then when you just bring people over and without really being able to educate the host communities about what those people represent, you kind of create a big gap in understanding.
Yeah, it seems like a tall order, like a difficult job. But I think it's such an important one and a really admirable thing to pursue, especially given your personal experience. I mean, and with regard to Egypt specifically, in America, we've been having our reckoning with race over these past few months since the summer. Mm-hmm. But in Egypt, you want to talk about racism? It's very, very obvious and direct. It's serious in Cairo, and that was really obvious through the different how differently you were treated. It was both a refugee thing and a race thing, and so trying to socialize the host community, meaning Cairo, to both humanize you as someone who is a refugee, but also someone who looks completely different and speaks a different language is it just seems very difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just that someone has to do something about it. And I guess every time I think of what used to happen in Cairo, not even used to happen, until now keeps on happening, is how Egyptians view themselves as not Africans. But then when it comes to the African Cup of Nations, which is this big soccer tournament where teams from all over teams from the continent come in and play, that's when Egyptians consider themselves as Africans. And yeah, I always remember how for 6 years of my life, every single time the Egyptian national team wins a tournament, like when I go out in the streets, I'll just be targeted and like, yeah, we've beaten you guys yesterday. And though, I mean, we're different people. Like, just because I'm black doesn't mean that I'm from Ghana or I'm from Ivory Coast or, whatever team that you have defeated yesterday. It was one of those, it's just one thing that always frustrates me. And, but at the same time, I'm a little bit, I'm more optimistic now, given that I now have friends here that I talk to, like Egyptian friends who I talk to about those issues, and they do acknowledge that those things do happen, and they're trying to do something about it. I mean, one of my classmates, like the person that I graduated with from CCS, so she's back in Egypt now, and we always have conversations about those things and how she thinks that she should be doing more to make those issues known, and even push people to actually talk about issues of racism in Egypt that takes place in Egypt. So yeah, I feel like when you can have more conversations about it, those conversations can lead to action, even if it's just a small, like a small sit down and then just tea and then just talk about it. Because the more you talk about it, the higher the chances of people actually taking actions.
Yeah, if no one does anything, then all of those issues get worse, and so you have to try. And so I applaud you, Zach, for having that ideal and that goal in mind. So let's say 3 or 4 years from now, you have a master's degree now, and you want to work and you have a job, let's say with UNHCR. Where are you living?
That's a very interesting question. It's a good question. Okay, this might sound like very crazy, but I think I would wanna live in Sudan again, like in Khartoum, Sudan. I know, just like for the last 5-6 years, I've just always felt like that's a place where, since it's where my journey started, that's a place where I want to go back to and see what kind of change that I can have there. Because I don't know, it's, even though I've left that country when I was really young, I still feel like it has like a big part of me feels connected to Sudan than it is to South Sudan. And yeah, even though that might not go well with a lot of people in my family, but yeah, a big part of me feels connected to Sudan. I feel like there's something there, there's something calling me to go back there and work there even for like a couple more years and see what happens after that. But yeah, it's just something that I've had in my mind for a long period of time. But also South Sudan is also part of my plan. But later on, like for now, what I want to do is work in a place where I feel like where I think there's where things are going in the right direction. And with Sudan, especially after the revolution that took place in 2019, I feel like there is hope, and then things are going in the right direction, given that they're now setting up a government that is inclusive of everyone in the country, not just a government that is for the elites, but an inclusive government that is made up of people from all over the country. And then when you look at South Sudan, we still have a long way to go. I think for me, part of the reason why I think I'm a bit hesitant about going back and work there too soon is the fact that I'm scared for my life that, okay, if I try to make changes, I might be targeted. So for now, I would just wait it out and work in a place where I feel like, okay, maybe whatever I'm trying to achieve or whatever positive change I'm trying to have will be, will be welcomed.
Very cool. What do you consider your home country, Zach? South Sudan or Sudan?
Okay, I would say okay. I would say Sudan, but my passport says. Oh yeah, I would say Sudan.
Okay, and how many people that consider themselves South Sudanese actually live in Khartoum today?
A large number of South Sudanese. I think probably close to, I don't know, 2 million people, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel, should we ask our standard question?
Yes.
Or whatever version you want to ask today.
Okay. I want to ask, like really quick before that, the graduate, like trying to go to grad school. Do you know where you'd want to go? Are you open to going really anywhere in the world?
Okay, so like at this moment, I'm torn between. Okay, well, I've recently just applied to Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey in California. So, and then I'm still applying to like 3 more schools. One of them is Geneva Institute.
So would it help? So what I'm getting at is, like, would it help if Paul and I kind of checked our network to see if there's anybody that could talk to you that might be involved in a program like that?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, cool. We'll let everybody that listens to the podcast know, and maybe we can find somebody who knows somebody. But yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think you should have a lot of people behind you right now. But our standard question, here we go. Would you rather? How old are you now?
That's why I asked the home country question too, by the way. Like, I want to understand which military we're talking about.
Oh, okay. How old are you now, Zach? 28, 29?
I'm 25.
You're younger than me?
Daniel, you guys spent quality time together as teenagers, and you don't have a clue how old Zach is?
Zach, I totally thought you were older than me. Wow.
No, you're like a year and something older than me.
I think I'm 93. You're 95, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm 95.
Okay.
April 95. Yeah.
Wow. All right. I'm not a real friend. Okay. I know. Shut up.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe it's just like your level of maturity. I kind of interpreted that as you being older. But anyway, so our standard question is: would you rather, you're 25 now? Would you rather join the military? And this would be, I guess, the Sudanese military.
This is a really awkward question, actually, given Zach's background.
Hey, I mean, we're gonna make it happen, dude.
Yeah. All right.
Or okay, how about this? Or would you join the American military? Or would you become a stand-up comedian?
Okay. Good one. Okay.
I don't know if it's a good one.
Okay. I mean, not the Sudanese army, because
I'm with you there.
Because of their history.
Yes.
The American one. I think I would just be okay. I think I would want to bring joy into people's hearts and just make jokes that makes them laugh and just forget about whatever's wrong with the world. So I think I would just be a stand-up comedian.
I love that answer. That's a great answer.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. So when are you coming to the States again, Zach?
I don't know. I mean, if I get into the school in California, then hopefully the fall of 2021.
Based on your story,
crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed from us for sure. You mentioned Mama Lance, and I'm picking up on you have a deep affection for Mama, what Daniel and I are calling Mama Lance on the podcast, but Amelia Lance. She's going to listen to this, I assume. Any message you want to share with her?
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, thank you for, I don't know, believing in me and, just, believing in me and having faith in me and, getting me into the Boy Scouts, introducing me to her family and treating me like a son, even though sometimes I can be a pain in the ass to deal with. Yeah, I wouldn't deny that. I wasn't, I can't say I was an easy person to deal with sometimes, but she put up with that. So she was like, until now, she's like a second mom to me, like someone that I can always reach out to and talk to about anything without feeling that I can be judged or being told anything that is mean. So so I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for I'm also grateful for the advice that I was able to get from her, even if I didn't think that those things were right, or I just didn't want to hear them because I was just stubborn sometimes. But I'm grateful for that, and I would think I'm a lucky person to have encountered someone like her. So it's definitely one of those people that I will, for the rest of my life, remember. So
if you're calling yourself lucky, I don't know what that makes Paul and me, but
right.
Yeah, I think your story is amazing, and you've been working so hard for so many years to turn it into something positive and really give back and change the world. So it's really inspiring to listen to you talk and tell your story. And thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Zach, you have lived an amazing story, even though you're only 25. I wish you nothing but the best, and I love the positivity that you're bringing to everything that you get involved in and touch it, and that's now and future endeavors. So we wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe through whichever app you're using. To share your thoughts, head over to our website at podso1.io, and there you can comment on episodes or send us feedback directly. Thanks for listening.